What's up, YouTube? Doing a garage tool show off, if you will. Basically, showing you all the tools that I've used for these various builds, and what every Subaru owner should have in their garage. Do-it-yourselfer. I mean, not every Subaru owner, but someone who really gets down and dirty with engine swaps or any to turbo conversions. Just the base, not the basics, but everything in your arsenal to where you won't need to go to anybody else to do things. So I'm going to start on the right side of my workbench here and kind of work my way over. A lot of this stuff may be overkill, but I'll go into that. Bench is a little bit dirty because I'm doing a valve cover gasket install here. But okay, so I'll start over here. I like Ryobi tools just because you can use any battery, or you can use the battery stay the same from as the generations progress. Never had an issue with Ryobi tools, so I stay with them. First is the Sawzall. Sawzall comes in handy when you really gotta, just cut away at something. Doesn't matter how abrasive or shitty the cut is, you just want it out of there. That came in handy with some rusted bolts I had on my donor O2 WRX. It was kind of rusted in some spots, and I didn't care because the car was getting going to the junkyard, so I didn't care what I kind of fucked up. So I just used the Sawzall. Next would be, this is probably the biggest tool in my arsenal. This, I didn't think it was going to be that powerful, but this is a 3/8 drive Ryobi impact. And this will bust anything loose, like from lug nuts to chassis bolts. There was some times where I had to really hold it on there and let it really break for about 10 seconds, but I haven't found a bolt that wasn't able to break loose. If you're working on a severely rusted car, I'm not going to say it's going to do, get a 1/2 inch and just rip those puppies until they, until it snaps the bolts. But this will definitely do the job. This right here, I think was like $70 for just the tool. This is probably the number one tool in my arsenal. Then we have two drills, pretty much the same. One's just a newer model. Drill, screw, you know what a drill is, you know how to use it. This not really used anymore. This was my go-to before I found that 3/8 impact there. This is just like a drill or a driver, and then I put a 3/8 extension on it. It really doesn't have that much power, so you don't need this. This is not required. Tire inflator, that comes in really handy when you get a flat tire. This was like $20, and it inflates tires from 0 to 50 psi, so that comes in really handy. And then flashlight, definitely going to need a flashlight. This comes in pretty handy. It's a cheap flashlight. It kind of pivots at the top, so you can kind of point it as you go down. But that flashlight pales in comparison to this one. This one comes in extremely handy. So I drop that down. This shop light has the ability to fold out. So take it and fold it out. And then it's extremely well lit LED light, and there's hangers on it as well. So I can kind of hang this from the hood. I'll show you how I do that. Take it right here. Put one up here, one right there. Kind of hang it from the hood like that. Put a battery in so you can see how well lit it is. Yeah. And then with it off, lights are on, so you can, it's not going to be that big of a difference, but back here, it really lights up the back. So, very helpful tool. That was probably the second most used tool in my arsenal. Then batteries and chargers. Those definitely important. Those will come with the tools that you get for the most part. I have 4 here, so I always just run them on the charger. Then the third most tool used, this little guy. This is a 3/8 wrench or ratchet, if you will. So yeah, this gets in those tight spots. Sometimes the battery can get in the way, but for the most part, it gets in those tight spots really well and can pivot. So it can be that way or that way. It's pretty cool. That was $70 as well. So all said, these tools were, I mean, I probably got like, $300 or $400 worth of tools here. I got a few off of just OfferUp or, secondhand, or someone who was running a deal. So they weren't that bad. But if you're wondering how I mounted these, it's actually really cool. Someone on eBay or Facebook, I think I got these on eBay. Somebody made a 3D printed mount, if you will. So it's the same connector as the battery, and you just screw it in. So I have an extra one there, but I screwed these all in. You can see that way it's really easy to pop and they're not like all over the place. That comes in really handy. Okay, so next you have open-ended socket wrenches. These come in these are not really necessary for Subaru jobs. I mean, none of this stuff is really necessary. You can do it with just a wrench, but you're going to run into a lot of, it's just going to be hard. Right tool for the right job. So these, let me pull one out. These actually ratchet and they're open-ended, so it's perfect to get in those hard spots. With the socket won't get in because it's really thin. You can't put a shit ton of torque on this. I mean, it's not really meant to torque it down, but it's meant to get in those really tight spots. And this is metric sizes. All these, I think this was only $30 on Amazon. So odd numbers up here and even numbers down here. Then obviously, I mean, every mechanic has something like this. This is your mechanics tool set, if you will. The majority of these really won't be used. They kind of throw in extras just to fill it up. But I mean, you have your metrics. You have your metric sizes. Hold on. I'll drop that on this. So I'll put those back. You have your metric sizes right here. And then you go up to the 1/2 inch, 3/8, and then quarter. And then you have American or SAE sizes over here. Various Allen wrenches. Obviously, if you don't know already, Subaru's couple places they use 8mm. For the most part, it's just 10, 12. 14 is by far probably the most used. And then you have 17 and 19. If you have those, then you're pretty much good to go. So it's really just those sizes. It's mainly 10, 12, and 14 that are used. So then you have, these are just, I'm trying to organize a bunch of Subaru bolts. This is just the bolts that I've acquired over various builds. So I have extras, so I know where to go. Like if I need like a 10 mil or 12 mil, I go there. So that's that right there. The other tool that I kind of skipped over, which comes in really handy too, this little guy. So this is kind of like the Sawzall, only not so abrasive. It's a cutting wheel. Ryobi tool. This comes in handy when you need to cut stuff off in a more delicate way. I mean, it's not going to be perfect, but it's better than, the Sawzall just ripping through metal or ripping through, wood or anything like that. So, okay. Up here we have a few things. One-man brake bleeder. So this is definitely something that you need for bleeding your clutch, bleeding your brakes, obviously. So what this does is it has a check valve inside, so it lets fluid and air go in but not back out. So basically you can just put this puppy on the bleeder and then just open up the bleeder, and then either pump the brakes or pump the clutch from that area and just keep pumping until the bubbles are gone, filling up your brake fluid as you go. Comes in really handy. Plasti dip, because my whole car is plasti dip. You don't need that. A torch definitely comes in. This is a small torch, but you're definitely going to need to either heat up some bolts or just heat up things in general. So a torch definitely comes in handy. And then on to like the more specialty stuff. This is not as organized as I would like, but the biggest specialty tool that you're going to need in here, this is a 19-inch, because most sets don't include, this is a 19-inch wrench. This is for your, the main place you're going to use that is for your suspension. So your camber bolts and your strut mount bolts. That's where you're going to need that open end, because you get a 19 on one side with a socket, and then you have a 19 to hold it with the open end. So that's pretty important. This I keep in every car, and I have one in my toolbox, obviously. This is a Leatherman, or multi-tool, whatever you want to call it. Obviously pliers, I use the knife on this quite a bit just to cut stuff. But yeah, I keep it in cars too, just because you never know when you may need something like that. Utility cutter, obviously to cut stuff like I just said. And then this goes along with the brakes as well. So this is another specialty tool, kind of the only two wrenches that you'll need that are out of the mechanic set that are not in it. This is a box wrench or just a brake wrench here. So what this does, it actually goes around to eliminate stripping possibilities for brake hose lines and caliper bleeder valves. It's kind of important too. Wire strippers, this is definitely handy. I was just trying to cut them with scissors and then kind of bite the end off. Man, that was stupid of me. And this was only like $20. It's well worth its weight in gold. I did skip over this as I go through all this nasty stuff up top. This is a multimeter. This is very important if you're doing any sort of wiring, especially conversions from one car to another. And you don't know how to wire things. I use this specifically for my wiring of the windows and door locks on this car because it was an older 97 with an 02 WRX complete interior and complete wiring. So I had to wire in. Everything kind of worked out besides the doors and windows and taillights. So I had to use the multimeter on that. The best tool, this is how you can tell that someone works in the car a lot. Zip ties. Zip ties are like the duct tape for vehicles. You gotta have zip ties. They come in really handy. Obviously, they're not the best way to fix things, but they're strong and they hold their weight. So, great addition to your toolbox. Oil filter wrench, taking off an oil filter. May only use this once every few months, but comes in very handy. Axle nuts. This is a 32-bit. This is specifically used for CV axles on the Subaru. 32 millimeter. Gonna need that. O2 sensor socket. O2 sensor socket, obviously it's for the O2 sensor, has a slit in the side, so you don't have to worry about the wiring getting crimped or torn. And then a 22 millimeter. This 22 millimeter is for the crank bolt. So the crank pulley bolt is 22 millimeter for some crazy reason. And that's what you need for that. Forgot what this was used for specifically. I want to say, yeah, the transmission bolt, the transmission drain plug. This is a 10 millimeter hex, and that's neat to drain the transmission fluid. Oh, this is the poundy drawer. This is where all else fails. This is where I go. So, your rubber mallet, your pliers, a couple hammers, wire snips, tin snips, all kinds of stuff in here. This is where this is the last resort drawer. So I try not to use this that much, but pickle fork as well. This is for removing tie rods or ball joints. Mainly ball joints. I've used this for other things too, just to really get in there and then pry. This comes in really handy because it's very strong. What else we got? Hacksaws. You never know when you're going to need to hack something, and you need to get in a tight spot. Sometimes that cutting wheel won't work. And then these are very important too, like we showed, just a set of washers. And for any turbocharged vehicle or vehicles in general, vacuum line connectors. So just various ones. Definitely going to need those. And sprinkled throughout, of course, hose clamps. Hose clamps are definitely needed. Whenever I find extra, I'm very, very slow to throw away things. I'm going to keep it. So there have been so many times where I've been like, hey, I wish I would have kept that one part. And I'm like, oh, wait, I did keep that. So I go in here and I go for it. But I also have a problem with keeping stuff because you can see down here, I really need to go through that bin and kind of clean it out. But that's like the catch-all before I've, really gone through and see what I need. And while I got it here too, I mean, workbench is great. Obviously, you don't need a specific workbench if you have just a small space. You can fit a vise on it. man, that comes in handy. You don't know how many times where you're trying to really torque something and it's just flying out of your hands, or you need some stability, and that's where a vise comes in, or just clamping something down. Then the last drawer here, just an assortment of drill bits. And this little guy here, man, this is coming really handy. I need to get a new one because it's pretty worn. This step drill. The step one is extremely handy for drilling any kind of hole. So I'll use this for pretty much anything I need to drill now. I'll start off with just a small hole with a small drill bit, and then I'll just use this to drill as big of a hole as I need, rounding it out, ovaling it out, even squaring it out, whatever I need to do. I'm using this. It was like $8 at Harbor Freight. Comes in really handy. Okay, and then off to the side, and then we're pretty much done. Jack stands, got to have jack stands, right? Like, you need to raise your car up. First thing you got to do, jack your car up. I recommend a racing jack, or a low profile jack, and then a racing jack. And the reason it's called a racing jack is because this thing only takes, I think, like 10 pumps, 8 or 10 pumps to get as high as it's going to go, as opposed to that other jack that's down there that isn't very low and takes about 20 or 30 pumps to get to where it needs to go. So it really comes in handy. Blocks of wood, obviously, or not obviously, but in case you want to jack up the oil pan or anything like that, you don't want to jack up directly using the jack. You want to kind of spread that out by using a piece of wood. That's why there's wood down here. And then you should know what that is. That's an engine hoist. That's if you're really getting into it, taking engines out. Car ramps, you know what those are. Mats to lay down on, and then a creeper. That should be it. So that looks like a lot, and it is a lot, kind of more showing off of my garage here, I guess. But it's one of those things where if you have these tools, you'll be set up to do anything. So you can, besides like a welder, there's pretty much nothing that I can't do in here. I'm going to buy a welder. I really need to learn how to weld. But yeah, with all this stuff, you can do any job. So that's my garage. Those are my tool recommendations, not specific brands, but specific tools that you will need to do the stuff that I've done if you're subscribed to my channel. But that's it. Thanks, YouTube.